Justin Marshall joins us as we talk Super Rugby. Normally, an hour earlier than this on the program. Justin, I understand you've got a guy coming around to do something at the home, mate. I've always thought of you as a bit of a home handyman tradie in your spare time. Why have I thought that?
I am, and you've thought that because I actually started a carpentry apprenticeship way back in 1995, just before the game turned pro. And I got about a year and a half into it. But obviously, once the game turned professional, you were required at training all day, and you were busy all weekend, so I had to give it up. So I am, Marty, I am capable, believe me, but this was putting a new gun safe in, and there's massive regulations and safety requirements around it, so I wanted to be making sure I had some help so that it was compliant.
Just before we get on to the Super Rugby, mate, I was at the Kurau Club for the 125th anniversary celebrations over the weekend. I've been saying, I know that you're very familiar with that part of the world, beautiful part of the world, but also just the people that are involved at club level, at the smaller town clubs, mate. You couldn't find nicer people if you tried.
No, you couldn't. And I think that's the heart and soul of New Zealand rugby, isn't it? And like you, went down and did a little bit of speaking engagement for my former club, Woodlands, down in the Deep South as well, about 3 weeks ago for their 125th centenary. And just bumping into those people that work so hard week in, week out to keep the club thriving, to look after it, to keep club rugby alive was brilliant. And it gets you into the grassroots of the game. It's really enjoyable to go back to it, isn't it? To be perfectly honest, it's really refreshing.
Yeah, look, and I hope that the powers that be, I mean, look, I know that, they hand out money to the clubs for Silver Lake, and I hope that they don't think that's all they have to do. Turning up every now and again is the biggest thing, showing your face in the door, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely it is. And I think that's what the game needs. It needs to everybody recognising that, every All Black, every Super Rugby player, every professional rugby player comes out of club rugby. That's where it all starts. So we've got to keep it alive and thriving. I did enjoy going down there, mate. It was absolutely brilliant. I did still see some grey zip-up loafers and the best thing was, mate, I got paid for my work. I said, look, you don't need to pay me. This is my former club. I'm happy to help. But I got given about, maybe 10 to 12 fresh dozen oysters and a massive big slab of ribeye too to use. So that's old school. That's the way I like to be paid. Yeah,
look, I walked away with a bottle of gin from a mate who actually brews in the still. Yeah, absolutely perfect. The food was brilliant. They were still going on the Sunday when I left, mate, and they'd been going about 48 hours worth. All right. Rob Penney, before we get into the Super Rugby, good appointment for the Crusaders?
Look, Rob's been around the Canterbury environment before. I believe that they had some quite heavy contenders that were looking to take up the mantle of Crusaders coach. So he would have had to go through quite a vigorous interview process, I'm sure. So he must have come out of that very, very well. Like I said, he's been in the environment before. He's coached Canterbury before as well. Yes, he's been out of it for quite a while, but I think he understands, and that probably helped him, what that Canterbury culture is all about and how to make sure that he retains that, as well as bringing something different to the table.
Who makes the final of Super Rugby, Justin? Is it Chiefs Crusaders?
Well, look, the 1 and 2 on the table, both of them, if they don't get any inconsistency in their whole season performances for the final series, so they play the way that they've been playing right the way through, both of them at home as well. So, look, at the end of the day, if the Crusaders or Chiefs get knocked out, they're out of the comp. So to go right through, it'll be a final in Hamilton. I see them contesting the final, yes, but there's still some dangerous sides out there, and the Blues and the Hurricanes who are capable of anything on the day.
Can you see an upset in this weekend's quarterfinals, and if so, which of the 4 games?
Well, would you consider the Hurricanes Brumbies game? If I said the Hurricanes, would you consider that to be an upset?
No,
me neither. Not really. I think every game should go as scripted. That doesn't mean that you can't throw something in there, and sport is sport. But I'd be very surprised, and it would be a big upset. But the game, I believe, in Canberra, I would consider the Hurricanes to go into that game on current form as the favourite. So I wouldn't put that in the category of being an upset game.
Justin Marshall with his 81 test for the All Blacks. Sideline for Sky Sport with Nisbo in Wellington for the Dane Coles versus Cody Taylor encounter. Look, that actually changed the momentum of the game, didn't it? What went on there, Cody goes off and the Hurricanes come back. And in the end, the result doesn't stop the Crusaders, of course, getting a home semi or home quarter and then perhaps a home semi-final. Should Dane Coles be given a knighthood for services to sledging?
If there is one, I tell you what, though, there'll be a few contenders for that. I've seen a few in my time, and there'll be a few Australian cricketers that he'd have to get through to get his knighthood. But look, Coles is a veteran. He's been around not only the Hurricanes, but the Wellington and equally the All Black environment a very long time. I think he recognised that the way that the game was trending, the Crusaders were going to carry on with their method and rhythm and go on to win the game. And so he decided to take it upon himself to see if he could rattle them. And he not only rattled them with, like you say, a bit of sledging, but he equally did it with his physicality as well. He started to sort of just give the old player a push, drop the shoulder on a few, legally, and the Crusaders all of a sudden started looking at him and responding to him, and they completely got rattled by the fact that the game got out of the sequence that they were playing it in, and they didn't handle it well.
Yeah, and that's what worries me. And I looked at Cody Taylor and I thought, wow, look, that's so unlike you to bite like that. And Ray's made a comment about that afterwards too. And I hope it's just a one-off, because if it's at a World Cup, the ramifications of such. If you get a yellow card and you get baited into a yellow card.
Yep, that's right. And you've got to be mature in that situation and try and keep your emotions in check. But I get it, mate. I get what Cody Taylor was feeling, it's his opposite, and he had been giving it to them for about quarter of an hour up until that point. He had started at the very start. Him and Leicester Flying Unuku had a running battle throughout the entire game, and at times you've got to make sure that you do stay composed, and getting a yellow card is that composure, but equally you've got to stand up for yourself as well. And if you feel that some of the either sledging or some of the tactics, you need to sort of stick your chest out and be tough as well. I'm all for that. I applauded Cody Taylor at not backing down and giving Dane Coles a mouthful back. That's not what he got binned for.
No, he got binned for slapping the ball down, yeah.
That's right. So, it wasn't in response to that. And, I know that, like any backyard bully, what you've got to do is stand up to the bully and let them know that you're not scared of them. And, I think Cody Taylor did the right thing.
When you were playing, obviously there's a fair few. Is it something that you thought about before the game? Did you look at guys and think, I know that I can get up you and I'm going to go for you in that way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I knew I could do that to certain players. Mike Phillips, a Welsh scrum half, I could wind him up like a clock, no problem whatsoever. Equally, Byron Callagher, I knew that I could just give him a bob full and he would get distracted. And I learned from one of the best in the world, mate, George Gregan. And, I learned that, his chat is all about not personal, but it's directed at letting you know you're deficient or you're offside or you're off your feet or whatever it might be. And the minute you start responding to him, he knows that you're actually aware of that you're listening to him. So, I learned from a professional to keep my mouth shut. I reacted a couple of times and regretted it instantly. So, yeah, absolutely you can unsettle players. And, you've got to be very mindful of the fact that you don't cross the line. But if you can get them off their rhythm, go for it.
Justin Marshall is with us. Got a couple more questions. We'll let you go, mate. And then, I started the show by saying the first 5 teams this year in Super Rugby are the same 5 teams as last year. I look at this glass half full. What it says to me is recognise the quality and the consistency of these franchise sides. And if you're moaning about it, well, your other teams have got, this is the answer, get better. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I feel that I really had some high hopes that the Australian teams are really going to push the New Zealand sides this year. They've got a nucleus of good wallabies scattered throughout all of them, and they were all capable. And there was the odd upset and the odd occasion where, they performed really well, but ultimately just not consistently enough. And that's what it's all about. The Crusaders have dropped games, the Chiefs have dropped a game, the Hurricanes have dropped games. all of those top sides have at some stage, the Blues, have all had an off day or an off week or 2 or 3, whatever it may have been. But ultimately, they're still consistent enough across the entire season to get to that position that they're in now. And that's where I feel particularly those Australian teams have let us down. They have the ability, but then they have real lapses that ultimately cost them at finals time, and they end up having to try and come to New Zealand. The Brumbies, yes, have managed to just only hang on by the skin of their teeth to their position, but not the Reds and the Waratahs. And history shows they don't win outside of Aussie in finals football, mate. It's really rare that they do. So throughout the entire season, yes, your point is very valid. You've got to get it right. Otherwise, you'll find yourself not being able to win the title, because winning it in New Zealand is near on an impossibility.
MP finally win a game. I was wrapped for the players more than anyone else, obviously their management, and for Aaron Major to go out like that. It just would have felt, I don't know, I don't want to use the word sad, it just would have had a bad tinge to me if they'd gone through the whole season without winning a game. They saved their best for last.
Yeah, they did, and against a good side that had everything to gain too by playing well. Particularly a send-off for Michael Hooper. He deserved the team to go out there and win for the legend that he is in Waratahs and Australian rugby. His last game in Australia at that stadium for the Waratahs, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. But Moana Pacifica, as you mentioned, had other people on their agenda as well to make sure that they sign off in the right matter. Obviously Levi Omua won't be there next year, Aaron Major you mentioned, and to go through that season on a duck wouldn't have been fitting. So the Waratahs were the team that paid the price, and I think they kind of showed that if they can get into the game, Moana Pacifica, and stay in the fight, like they did against the Blues, where they unfortunately just, excuse the pun, dropped the ball right at the pivotal time. They are capable. It's just their fluctuations again in form are just too far, from being good to being really poor. But great for them to send particularly Aaron Major off on the right note. He deserves it. And
finally, would you agree, or would you call the Ndrua the real success story of this Super Rugby season? 5 out of 6 at home, including victories over the Reds, the Crusaders and the Hurricanes. To me, if the competition wants to survive and thrive, then bringing in the Pacific Island teams, I mean, that's a great thing to do. But then they've got to establish themselves, and in the second season to win 5 or 6 at home, that away trip has got to turn into one of the most gruelling and hardest places to go to win a rugby game. That's the point of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the point of it. And that's a good thing, because I feel that, when you chatted to a lot of the super players at the start of the year and they said, what game are you not looking forward to? Most of them said going over to Nandi, to Lautoka, and trying to win against the Ndrua over there, where they're in their environment, their own conditions, and, that really tests you. So, the fact that they have managed to formulate such a good record, the teams they've toppled over are no mugs by any means, All of them are in the top 8. Yeah, exactly. So that's really good. They just need to now take the next step, and that's replicate the way they play at home away, so that they're more of a challenge when they travel. And that's going to be obviously the focal point for them this week. But yes, in answer to your question, Marty, absolutely they are the success story of Super Rugby Pacific this year. The fact that they have made the 8 and are showing that they've got some real fight and ticker and talent in them, it's brilliant for them, and brilliant for Fijian rugby as well, particularly in a World Cup here where there's quite a few of those Ndrua players. I spoke to Daryl Gibson the other day, assistant coach of Fiji. We said there's a good nucleus of those players will be in our squad along with the European players. Mate, they could cause some massive...
Aren't they in England's group? Is that the group they're in? Let me just check.
They're in Wales.
Wales, Australia. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Wouldn't that be a great upset? Yeah, brilliant.
Opening game is in Fiji. It's on the weekend. It's on a Saturday. It's Fiji versus Wales in Marseille in early September. It's likely to be 30 degrees. The Welsh have had, I don't know how many players retire, 3 or 4 recently. That is genuinely going to be one hell of a game.
Look forward to chatting next Monday, Justin Marshall with us, as he is every single Monday, talking Super Rugby.